Well. Welcome to Global Vision. I'm extremely excited to have with us Aseda Tena, which is a genius. And I think that for any person that is in a science will see why. In the area of her study, I find it that is extremely interesting. And I'm here a learner, so I'm a student. And we want to just hear from her and welcome you into Global Vision.
Thank you so much, Bisila. It's wonderful to be here. I'm delighted to actually meet you because you are also a tour de force for everything that you have accomplished, and I'm really humbled to have the opportunity to share here my story in science. And I think that inspiring the young generations through your program it's a great opportunity. And thank you again for giving me the chance to participate in this wonderful program that you have initiated.
Well, I think the fortune is ours, and we will see now why. Tell us a little bit about Athena. Who is Athena?
Yes.
Aseda Tena.
So by way of training, I am a research scientist. I am in my last year of completing my PhD degree at Harvard Medical School in the Biological and Biomedical Sciences program. I was born and raised in Albania. My hometown is situated in the south of Albania near the Mediterranean Sea. So I'm very fond of the summers and, the Mediterranean Sea. I still can't quite acclimate to the ocean here in the United States. So
I agree with you. I'm from the Mediterranean too.
I understand. But I came to the United States when I was 17 years old, and I was here alone. I came by myself, not with my family. And I can say that nothing really would have prepared me for the diversity and the hardships and obstacles that I had to overcome to get to where I am today. And I think that every time that I look back to the roads that I had to travel to get to where I am, I still find appreciation because every single experience that I had, shaped the person that I am today. So I think, every challenge it has its good way because it really builds character.
I do believe so too. So tell us, what led you into the path of biology and a science in general? I mean,
Yes, yes, great question. Everyone asks me that because everyone has a story to tell. How did you get involved with science? And for me, it was my father. He has diabetes, and from a young age, I saw him, struggle with maintaining normal glucose levels. And I was surrounded by books and articles that he had purchased to learn about the disease and how to manage diabetes. And in general, I also was very good with biology and chemistry in high school. And I was very much taken by a class in biology that spoke about the human recombinant insulin. So that was a revolutionary technology initiated by the biotech company giant Genentech here in the United States. And the recombinant human technology allowed for a human gene to be inserted into a bacteria. And the bacteria was taught to produce a human protein like the insulin. Well, that to me was fascinating. I said that this is so powerful because until 1978, when Genentech produced the human recombinant insulin, most of the insulin injections would come from animal tissues, so like the pigs and the cow. But now we had the opportunity to use the human insulin, the real human protein. And now that's what has happened. This was a revolutionary technology, and everyone in the world getting the insulin injections are coming from the human recombinant technology. So that was fueled my passion, and that's what I decided to come to the United States, to study biotechnology, and the opportunities here are also bigger.
what is biotechnology? Because of course, when I was a young girl, this term didn't exist. So it's
Well,
someone from my generation, we would love to know from your perspective, what is biotechnology?
So I think if you were to break down the word bio and technology, is that you are combining the field of biology by developing techniques that will improve the outcome for whatever research that you're doing. And biotechnology applies not only to the medical field, but it applies to agriculture and industrial biotechnology, because we have the capacity right now to really combine certain tools or systems that we have developed with applications not only in the medical field, but like in the agriculture and the industrial system, for example, again with the goal to improve the challenges that we have in the world related to the aging population or infectious diseases, as well as climate change, which is like a big issue right now.
And what is the area of your study? What area really fascinates you?
So I've had a long journey of science, and prior to coming to Harvard Medical School for my PhD, I was at Massachusetts General Hospital. And for 8 years, I studied organ transplantation biology. I was, again, very taken with the immunobiology of the organ transplantation, because in college, I took an immunology class and learned about bone marrow transplantation. So I really wanted to dissect more, know more about this field. So I joined the laboratory of Dr. David Sachs at Massachusetts General Hospital. And there, my research efforts were geared towards the field of xenotransplantation. So that word is foreign to many, including myself at first. But xenotransplantation is the use of pig organs for making them available to bridge the shortage of human materials for transplantation. And this field, xenotransplantation, I find it very impactful to me, because right now in the United States, it is estimated that about 11 people die a day waiting for an organ transplant. Mm-hmm. Now, if we put this number in context for the world, that number is larger. So my professor had figured out how to make the pig more suitable for human organ transplantation. So he had designed this specific strain of animals that we can also genetically engineer to make them more compatible for human organ transplantation. So I always sought to be involved in research that has an impact, something that can really revolutionize or really solve an unmet medical need. And I thought xenotransplantation was that field initially.
And what is genetic engineering?
Yes, genetic engineering also sounds like an intimidating word and concept, but it really allows scientists to make genetic modification in the genome of an organism, let that be a bacteria, a cell, or even human cells. And we have developed really powerful techniques right now that we can make precise genetic modifications. And one of these techniques that has really flourished since 2012 is called the CRISPR-Cas9 technology. In fact, last year, Jennifer Doudna and Emmanuel Charpentier were awarded the Nobel Prize for finding this technology and apply it for genetic editing. Myself, I use it for my current studies in my laboratory. And more broadly, scientists are applying it for really solving genetic diseases that are really debilitating for many people. In fact, last December was a wonderful study presented by the CRISPR Therapeutics biotech company and also Vertex Therapeutics, in which they were able to really bring back to normal a woman that was suffering from sickle cell anemia. So sickle cell anemia, for everyone who's suffering from this disease, is that the red blood cells that travel through our blood, they have a biconcave shape, so a shape that doesn't allow them to flow really well through our pipes. It would be the blood and so that makes those people really sick. So they require frequent hospitalization. They don't feel well all the time. So the scientists were able to take the bone marrow cells, so the cells that we have in our bones that give rise to the blood in our system, and genetically modify it with a CRISPR-Cas system, so they can correct the defect that leads to this weird shape of red blood cells and make them normal again. So when they transplanted these genetically modified cells into this patient, for 2 years right now that they have followed up, she has been free from sickle cell anemia. So it's just so powerful. It's so fascinating that, with this technology right now, we can correct some of the debilitating diseases, and this paves the way for the other genetic diseases that we know many people are suffering. So that's what it entails to do genetic engineering, always with the intent to correct the genetic diseases that we know are affecting many people. It's wonderful.
It's so interesting what you said, because just yesterday in the Wall Street Journal was an article about this woman who wrote the Nobel Prize. And I said, oh, I'm going to ask Aseda a question about this. What is exactly gene editing? Because they were saying that, for example, if parents could decide also if they want the kids to have blue eyes or to raise the IQ of children, and they were speaking about a little bit about that. And I said, well, how you do that? How you could just edit the DNA or the genes?
That's a different kind of application of the genetic engineering technology. So, there's a lot of ethics involved with the genetic modification, especially, as I mentioned, the advent of the CRISPR-Cas9 technology that allows you to make precise modifications with 100, with almost over 90% accuracy and success. So many people now are thinking that if we can genetically modify the human embryos and then use them for IVF, you can modify them so that you could have children with blue eyes, be taller or smarter. But that's not actually the intent for making genetically smarter babies in general. That's not the intent of the genetic modification that we want to use right now. And that has stirred the fear because in 2018, a scientist in China was using the CRISPR-Cas9 system to genetically modify human embryos for making them resistant to HIV infection by deleting this gene called CCR5. And that spurred, a worldwide anger among scientists, because we still don't know how this technology applies to human embryos in general. It's still in its infancy. There's a lot more research to be done. So it was very premature for the scientists to use this technology in human embryos right now. And there's going to be a committee that's going to design guidelines about how we can use this powerful technology for genetic modifications, because we certainly do not want to exploit this for the intent of making smarter babies. Because, that just changes at a higher rate, the gene pool or gene drive, as we like to say. And that's not the intent for what we as scientists have initially for using the genetic modifications.
Well, it's so impressive what you're saying that, because that leads me to the next question. What is the future of biotechnology, and how this could definitely just help? The industry is developing and is bringing so much goodness also to humanity. And how do you see that? What is the future that you envision? And you are part of this narrative.
Yes. Yeah, as I was mentioning before, biotechnology is a very powerful system. And, at some point in our future, it will, be touching our daily lives. And I think that it's not just the medical biotechnology, but like I said, the agriculture and industrial biotechnology will help us in the future to, again, address some of our, global problems. As I mentioned, the biotechnology system can be applied to remove, harmful toxic or agents, from the environment. And that in itself can also help address, the current climate change. And,
Mhm.
we would be able to address secure food and electricity, and also, address infectious diseases. So biotechnology is very powerful, and with the advent of or more breakthroughs or scientific breakthroughs that are made and applied, they all have the intent to make the planet restore it better, to its full capacity for sustaining human life. And of course, we're always under attack from viruses and bacteria, and we want to be able to use biotechnology to help us, eliminate and fight those, harmful microorganisms that always seem to want to attack us, including the current pandemic that we are experiencing.
I would love to ask you, as a woman in a field that it's very little populated by women, what was the biggest challenges that you encounter?
Yes, I would say that in general, I've been fortunate enough to come across great mentors that have only really inspired me to, pursue science. But, I know that for many cases, it hasn't been the easiest for, other women because, women are always, thought to be more fragile than men. They can handle the workload, for example. But it is us who sets up, or dictates to these people who think otherwise that we are just as compatible with men to be able to carry science forward. So I think I would say that I am not. I haven't really experienced any big challenges in pursuing science, but I guess the limitations would have been if I didn't have to come to America and explore, the opportunities here. Maybe in Europe or in my hometown, or my country, for example, I wouldn't have been able to pursue this because there isn't much science going there, and then women are more involved with other activities, not so much in science. So
Mhm.
I would say that I didn't really experience a big challenge as a scientist. But I think that for I want to go next, I might. But
And where do you
because
want to go next? Tell us.
the next area that I want to explore is venture capital. So not many women are in the venture capital world. It's mostly heavily populated by men. Although with the diversity inclusion um, move right now, there's a big urge for that to change. So if women that want to pursue venture capital, in life sciences, uh, have that urge, that passion, then they should give that opportunity and not just close the doors thinking that she's a woman and would have other duties that she can handle the workload for building companies, because that's what I want. I want to be able to build biotech companies through venture capital. I think that a scientific breakthrough is more impactful when you can take that and commercialize it and make it available for the patients or solving the unmet medical needs. I think that in itself is more impactful than continuing just to do science, because there are so many scientific breakthroughs that are made, but if we cannot really translate them for the betterment of the human health, that just remains a scientific breakthrough. So the impact is greater when we can apply that scientific therapeutic or diagnostic to patients who actually need that.
I
So
love what you're saying because it's about sharing that possibility with as many people as possible.
yeah,
So
you
that
want to bring
marriage between the science and venture capital, it's perfect. It's just a no-brainer.
you can't help by feeling inspired, especially here in Boston. There's such a boom of biotech startups everywhere, and most of these companies always have goals, to, bring the next therapeutics, or like, better increase the diagnosis processes, whether that's for cancer or other diseases. So, when you are surrounded in such a, environment that's constantly evolving, you can't help but feel inspired that you want to pursue a different route with your PhD. I also want to be able to identify the next best, therapeutic potential or diagnostic potential, and then commercialize that. And, it takes a lot of work because, now there's money involved, and it's different because, you have to make the investment and you have to build these companies. So there's a lot of challenges involved there, but, but I'm willing to learn, and that's what I want to pursue as a biotech entrepreneur after my PhD completion. So.
Well, I think it's brilliant, and I'm pretty sure that the next conversation that we have in an interview, it will be from another place. You will be already at the other side of the bridge.
I hope that I will be able to share with you, my journey of what I would have accomplished as a, venture capital entrepreneur.
I'm sure you will. And I would love to conclude with some words of inspiration for people who would like to be in the science world. And also, I mean, how is the life of a scientist? How is your day? I mean, what do you do? And I think that helps a lot of people through inspiration to understand what is your daily life? I mean, what drives you every day to get out of the bed and accomplish something? So if you could share that with us.
Yes, of course. The life of a scientist is very demanding, in the sense that, you are every day engrossed with your experiments, and some of them are very burdensome in the sense that, they require your attention constantly. For example, I work right now with brain progenitor cells, and I have to be in the lab all the time to feed the cells and also make genetic modifications that with the CRISPR-Cas system that we talked about. So I am in the lab all the time. So I knew that coming into the PhD, it was going to be a very rigorous experience, because you have to learn, or you have to be prepared to work very, very hard. But, in science, 90% of your experiments also fail. So, in the beginning, that would discourage me a lot. Like, I would feel like, oh, I can't do this. This is impossible. But then, talking to other people in the lab that were more senior than me, they taught me that do not see failure as a discouragement, see that as an opportunity to learn. So always ask the question, why did it fail? Did I do something wrong, or is it something biologically related that it failed? So once you try to grasp and understand that, then you create a sense of appreciation that, maybe this is not really a failure. Maybe there's something more that I should dissect out and learn to address what that failure meant. So the more I failed in my experiments, I would say the more I have learned. So, I've become better prepared now to attack, future failures, or even, trying to envision or prevent them from failing. So I think as a scientist, you have to be prepared to work very hard, and, there will be failures, but you have to really be passionate about the topic that you are studying. I think that's the key. You cannot lose passion, because it's the passion that your discovery is going to make an impact or add something to the overall unknown that will, bring you the drive that you need to pursue that experiment despite its failing. So always stay, for the young people who really think that they like science, it's not easy. Science is not easy, but you always have to remain inquisitive. You always have to question everything. And once you dive, or have the opportunity to dive into the scientific field, it's amazing the roller coaster that it takes you through, that, you are able to discover something on your own. I think that's very powerful to me that, you know, I was able to make that significant contribution in science because I studied that, I brought that to light. So I think you have to be prepared to work very hard. But I think I've also learned that you have to also be surrounded by friends who support you, family who supports you, because, you know, sometimes when you are so overwhelmed, you feel like, you know, everything is going to break you down. But once you are surrounded by like-minded people and speak with them, everything is fine. You know, take a deep breath in and go and tackle that experiment again.
Well, you give us such an amazing insights, but I think that because you already know this, it will help you so much in entrepreneurship journey because you really need to learn to fail forward. I mean, you fail and you keep trying again. And I think this is one of the key points. And it's like to see these failures not like failures, like opportunities to grow and to keep going. So I
Exactly.
think this is the best advice that you could give people. And also to be surrounded by cheerleaders, you know, people who really are gonna lift you up.
That they put constantly for you that, you know, you're gonna go through this, you know, don't get discouraged, don't be let down. And, you know, I always feel that the more you challenge yourself, the more you are prepared, you know, to grab the next opportunity. You know, I always love the saying that, you know, chance, favors only the prepared mind. So that's why my favorite microbiologist, Louis Pasteur, that, you know, the more you learn, the more prepared you're going to be. So if the next thing that you are observing in experiment, you know, would make sense to you or not, you would know because, you know, you have been studying so much, you've been working so hard for that, or you have thought so hard about that topic. So, you know, sometimes even in science, you know, when you work really, really, really hard, you also need a little bit of luck. So
That combination is the one that works.
and then also people they say, you know, the harder you work, the more luck you seem to gain, you know.
Well, you know what, Aseda, it's been a pleasure really to talk to you. And I think that I was always scared of science when I was a young girl, but if I had a conversation with someone like you, probably I wouldn't, because you make it really look like so beautiful and it's passionate. And when you know what you're able to do with it, because sometimes, you know, the way that they portray science is not really giving us what we could do with that. So we start fearing the math and the chemistry and the physics and all of this because there is no reason, but you give it the human reason behind. And that's beautiful. So I think that you inspire me, and I'm sure you inspire a lot of our audience too.
Yeah, I think as a scientist, you know, most of us, what we should do is get more involved into, you know, explaining what we do to the public at large, because I feel that only then, when people really understand what is happening, they can also, you know, have this appreciation for science. And I think it would help, you know, the scientists and the public connect together, because, you know, we don't do this for our own growth. We do this because there's something that we feel we can make a change where there is the unmet medical need, or like discovering an unknown mechanism in our body, because, you know, we are really an enigma. You know, we don't really fully know how everything in our bodies works. And if you think about that, that's amazing. And you can get involved and learn. You know, it's also amazing because it will just bring to light something that we didn't know before. So I think, yes, science is wonderful, and it has the opportunity to change our lives for good.
Well, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's been a pleasure. We thank you so much that you've been part of Global Vision today for Negocios TV in Spain. And we're definitely, definitely grateful for your time. I know that you're extremely busy and it was not easy to have you with us, but thank you.
I always make time to share my story, and especially with such a wonderful initiative and program that you have designed. It's really been a pleasure to share my story with you, and you know, I hope to continue to participate and talk to you more in the future. It's been great.
Definitely you will.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Priscilla.